AskReddit by known pop 8355. People of Reddit, what was your "I'm dating a fucking idiot" moment? Deleted. The spark would be gone for me after that. He kept applying for jobs and getting denied instantly. At the time, I didn't understand and was upset for him. Come to find out, this 26-year-old was applying for jobs driving armored trucks for banks, with a record for stealing money from cash registers. I didn't know at the time that he had ever been arrested, but this man literally had robbery and theft on his record, and couldn't understand why an armored truck company wouldn't hire him. This just jogged a memory that's over a decade old. I was visiting my aunt one afternoon having tea and I, 18 at the time, could overhear an argument between my cousin, 20M, and his dad when he shouted, "I don't know why you keep blaming me just because I'm the one who did it." I had to excuse myself. My ex didn't think it rained over the ocean because there was enough water there already. She was shocked it rained when we were on a cruise. It rained on the ship, not the ocean. He thought the outlet plug covers, for childproofing, meant the outlet was out of order. He literally had nothing plugged into the walls of his entire living room. He also mentioned how smart he was any chance he got, usually a prime indicator. He thought all of the outlets in his living room were out of order and he never considered calling an electrician. He just accepted that he could never plug anything in that room. My ex thought he could play hockey and found what he thought were the holy grail of skates. He bought them for $200. I don't know the price as it was a long time ago. His friend, who lived in a city an hour and 20 minutes away, told him he got the same skates for $195. So my ex, in his old Camaro that cost $50 in gas round trip, returned the skates he got for $200 and drove 1 hour and 20 minutes to get the skates that were $5 cheaper. That should have been the biggest red flag. But sadly, it turned out I was the fucking idiot who stayed with him for a few more years. Used to work in retail. It would have you think this is a normal thing. Guy bought a pair of bike tires off us for $20, then saw they were cheaper at the other branch 15 kilometers away. How much cheaper, you ask? 50c. I had to explain to a grown woman that 20% is not always $20 when converted to currency. Her waiters have been getting mad tips then. My first boyfriend was trying to convince me to do anal and told me it'll feel good because it stimulates the prostate. I'm female. Same guy. It's the male kangaroo that has the babies. Bonus fact, we're Australian. It's the male seahorse that has the babies. Trust me, I'm a kangaroo. I know this. Was just lounging about one Sunday and skiing came on the TV. At one point the commentator said that contestants reached 100 kilometers per hour at that point in the race. The ex literally shouted bullshit at the telly. I looked at her and asked why. She replied that there was no way that they could tell how far they'd go in an hour since the race was only 2 minutes long. Another time, I have an aunt who lives in London. Is that near England? Did she, like, go to school? Like any school? I introduced him to my stepsister. He said, "Weird, you guys look nothing alike." I would say this just as a joke. It was when vampire-related shows and movies were in the height of their popularity. He became obsessed with vampires. When we would go outside, he started to act like the sun was hurting him, and he would shield his face with his hands while groaning in pain. Think of Jim from The Office with his vampire prank, only he was more dramatic and serious. Okay, now I feel less embarrassed knowing I'm not the only one who was in a relationship with someone who said they were a vampire. It was 1999 and I was a Marine. What is war like? How many wars have you fought in? When you jumped out of a plane in enemy territory, didn't you think you might get showdown? She asked these questions for months. I would ask what war is going on or what war could I have been fighting in. She was always super confused and would laugh and say I will open up eventually. She told me she told her mom when I got out I was going to make tons of money as a parachute repairman. To this day I have no idea what she was talking about. I told her tons of times I never jumped and it was rare for Marines to be airborne. Who would want a repaired parachute? He was trying to make cookies and kept opening the oven for extended periods of time, letting out all the heat. When I told him he was letting all the heat out by opening the door wide open and staring at the cookies, he told me I didn't know how ovens work because the temp setter said 400 so it was 400. Took an hour to bake one sheet of cookies and said I don't know why it's taking so long. Also insisted on doing this on Thanksgiving, tying up my oven and was pissed off when he found out the turkey would take 3 hours to cook. As I'm sure you can imagine. Did not work out. First rule of BBQ when using a smoker, which also could be said for baking in the oven: if you're looking you ain't cooking. Do you think getting drunk so often while I was pregnant was bad for him? She said this about her son who was 5 years old and had yet to speak a single word yet. She was not the primary caregiver. This is the saddest. Poor kid. I went on a couple dates with a woman who owned 2 large energetic dogs. When she bought them she was informed that she'd need to walk them every day to get them exercise and burn off energy. To save time, instead of walking them she'd take them for a drive and thought that accomplished the same thing. Well, unless they were pulling the car. Not related, but I saw my neighbor regularly driving up and down our street, car window down, leash in hand, drive walking his dog from the car. We drove past a windmill on a windy day. She commented how it was too windy out and they should turn the windmill down. She was dead serious. I'm sorry, that's fucking hilarious. Lol. When he left the window open in the middle of summer because the air conditioning made the house too cold. He didn't turn off the air conditioner and argued that it wouldn't have made a difference. Edit: I want to clarify that he argued having the window open wouldn't make a difference as to how much the AC ran. I got home and the house was warm and very humid. The AC had been running constantly. Not but my college roommate. All night every night he would change the thermostat on the window unit between 60 and 80 to repeatedly as he got hot or cold. I could never get him to just set it to 68 or 70 and forget it. Deleted. I worked with a woman who had a hysterectomy after her last child. She started dating a guy and things got serious pretty quick, but good for them. One day, she said they were trying for a baby after being together for a couple months. And I'm like, he knows you've had a hysterectomy, right? You know you've had a hysterectomy, right? She insisted that God finds a way. He told me he had a lot of inventions and how rich he will be when one sells. I asked him to tell me more. He says his best invention is eye drops that, with just one application mind you, eliminate the need for eyeglasses. The guy is a mailman. Not a doctor. Not a scientist. And he wears glasses. So I said, if these eye drops work, why do you wear glasses? The eye drops don't exist yet. But when someone else actually formulates these fantasy eye drops, my mailman friend thinks he will get the money because he invented them by dreaming them up. Edit: I dated him very briefly years ago. He didn't have any patents. Just misguided dreams. Nice guy. Just, well, a special kind of small former coal mining town kind of idiot. Deleted. She found a coin in the couch and exclaimed, "Wow, this is a really big nickel." To which I responded, "That's because it's a quarter." Similarly, I dated someone in high school who got into an argument with a cashier at the gas station because they thought their quarters were worth $1 each. Why? Because they had noticed that they had the words $quarter on them. So they were a dollar coin called a quarter. I tried to explain that it meant 1/4 of $1, but they insisted I was wrong and they had found this amazing fact that some quarters were actually dollars. Coincidentally every one that they had. Wow. Yes, The schools in my hometown are fantastic. He put a load of laundry in with mixed color and whites, poured in bleach to whiten the whites, was shocked that the bleach bleached everything in the load. I had to explain that the bleach will bleach everything you put in it as the bleach cannot discern what you want bleached or not. He was shocked, truly stunned and flabbergasted. Thank you for the award. I once had a neighbor in an apartment building ask me how to mute the dryer. You don't. I'm getting lit up by people asking if she meant the buzzer when the dryer finished. She did not. She wanted to mute the drum, aka the rotational drum that spins your clothing to dry it. She did not like the thumping noise. I had an ex that became a nurse. She didn't believe in gravity. I thought she was joking. But she was not. I think that everything has weight, but I don't believe in gravity. Gravity is bullshit, the earth just sucks. She didn't know how to get to my house from anywhere but her house. Her work was about halfway between my house and hers, but she had to drive home first every time before she could drive to my house. This was pre-smartphones. Most of these were good, but this one is great. When I mentioned I was on my period, he asked what my favorite flavor of tampons are. He genuinely thought the colors on the tampon packs were flavors, and that it would soak into my blood while inside and I'd eventually taste it. I'm desperate to know the source of this information. Okay, but I legit did the garlic clove inserted for a yeast infection remedy once. The remedy warned that you might get a garlicky taste in your mouth, which I thought was the most hilarious bullshit until about 5 hours later when I started to taste garlic. I watched her wrap a potato in aluminum foil and toss it into our microwave. I spoke up and said you can't do that, because of, yeah no, microwaves. She was 25, looks me right in the eye and says my mom does this all the time, she taught me. As nicely as I could I explained how she must be mistaken. She digs in. 5 minutes of passionate arguing result in me saying try it. She forced herself not to react to the volley of sparks and zapping sounds for the first few seconds, just in case it stopped. Looked me in the eye and said well it always worked before. She really sent that potato back in time to kill John Connor. She would always ignore the idiot lights in her cars until they broke down. We bought a car that actually tells you when to bring it in for service. She came up to me, really frustrated, complaining about the car being noisy. She said there's this big flashing message that says bring auto in for service and I can't get it to turn off. What should I do? This person has a PhD too. Sometimes the smartest person in the room and the person who forgot to put on pants are the same person. I was the fucking idiot. I thought a French press worked by putting the coffee on top of the plunger, lowering it in, and then pulling it out. My girlfriend really wrestled with whether she could keep dating me after that one. I'm interested to know what part of that you thought was the pressing. He didn't know where the ankle was. I hurt my ankle when he dropped me, on accident, and he went to look at it and said it looked fine as he was touching my calf. I was like well yeah cause that's not my ankle. Silence, then arguing about how it was my ankle and me telling him it was my leg not my ankle and having to explain what an ankle was. Don't ya just love the double down? Japanese ex I caught sleeping around at the height of the AIDS crisis told me not to worry, Japanese people can't catch it. Eat a wow. Didn't know this would take off like this. Backstory makes it even more absurd. She was a graduate of a prestigious university in Tokyo and earned a master's in the US and had lived here for a while. I had about burned out on the relationship, but this put me out the door. I'm a guy from the US and started dating my wife when she was 23, after spending her first 18 years in Korea. She knew that gay people existed, but thought they were only in some countries, and didn't think there were any Korean ones. She was late 30s and thought all bluebirds were boys and all robins are girls. Because that's how it always is in cartoons. And pit bulls are boys and poodles are girls. Had a girlfriend that tend to throw fits for everything. One day she spotted me on a restaurant's terrace on my campus having lunch with a lady. She came storming in like a fireball, started to scream at me, started to insult that poor lady she said was old enough to be my mother. Come on, you understand already, how could she not, and all. When she finished I just said, so mom, this is X, my ex-girlfriend. My mom still brags about the fact that my ex believed she could pull a guy my age. At least she took it the right way, lol. Your mom is awesome, haha. When she asked, how long does it take for a boy to grow a new testicle after intercourse? Damn, that's a whole new level of busting a nut. Dating this gal and we go out on a double date. She's kind of goofy, but more lacking common sense vs like dumb as a box of rocks, until that night. So double date is BBQ, we all order, she gets ribs, so we are eating, she says, what part of the cow is this from? We chuckle, she stares at us all, her sister included, and says, did you not hear me? What part of the cow does this come from? We, in unison, say, ribs. She responded, I know the name from the menu, but what part of the cow is it? I was done. Did she figure it out? We went to a science museum and saw a display of a carboniferous swamp, and I casually remarked that the land would have been different back then due to plate tectonics. She had never heard that the continents moved, so I explained how it worked with plates moving, earthquakes, and volcanoes. She still didn't believe me. So I found the plate tectonics museum display that explained it all. And then she said she was amazed that I had enough pull with the museum to have them set up a display to support my lies. This museum sits on a moving plate of lies. Not me, but my sister. Her husband's car was having trouble starting. She thought maybe it was time for a new battery. He insisted on leaving the garage window open at night so the battery could get fresh air, because maybe the garage was just too stuffy and that's why the car wasn't starting. They have since divorced. I don't want to go to St. Louis, it's a dirty city in dirty Detroit. A commercial for the film The Martian came on the TV. Is that a true story? Like, did he really do that? Same person. Flew across the country to visit family. We took his brother's dog for a walk and all the family members said don't let the dog off the leash. Towards the end of our walk, he says I'm gonna let the dog off, and I begged him not to. Eventually I said, if you let the dog off the leash and it goes badly, I will break up with you. It went badly. I did break up with him. More. What happened? She was visibly upset. Tears and quiet sobs, while we were watching District 9. She turns to me and whispers, when did this happen? As in the mistreatment of space aliens actually happened. This gave me a good chuckle, not only because of how stupid it is but also kind of endearing that she cares for aliens and thinks they're real. She thought that if you drive south you were going downhill, and uphill if you drive north. She thought you got exposed with radiation by watching videos of nuclear bombs exploding. She didn't believe that the Earth was just floating in space and was just attached to something, like rope from the North Pole dart. Edit, thought of another. She thought that the electricity at night was radioactive as it's mainly produced by the nuclear baseline, so would refrain from using electricity at night. Was she a time traveler from the 1400s? I had to work overtime, so I asked her to go to my house to check on my dog and the litter of puppies. I said they're in the front bedroom in the baby pool. I said to check on the runt and help it attach to the nipple. Her response was, that's so crazy that they can eat underwater. I was dumbfounded. It's very rare that I audibly laugh over a comment. That's gold. Dated a guy with hemorrhoids who swore that every time they bled he was just having his period. That's just sad, lol. My partner used to believe that AD stood for after dinosaurs. My ex-GF in all seriousness said electric vehicles and power stations was a great invention. For people being blind. It has to be so much easier for them to drive if they don't have to fill the tank with gas. Took her about half an hour of me laughing before she understood that blind people in fact cannot drive. Had been casually dating a girl for a few weeks. I was on my way to the mall one day when she called me. She said she would meet me there to hang out. Told her to park on the north side of the mall and meet me at the entrance. Took her forever to show up. She said she got confused when I told her to meet me on the north side of the mall. After a few questions I found out that she thought north was just whatever way she was facing. If she was watching the sunrise she thought the sun rose in the north because that's the way she was facing. What? She didn't know the difference between a country and a continent. Sounds Australian. He complained that his boss was questioning how he addressed emails to him. So I asked, how are you addressing those email? He gave this example, "Ha Mike." I said, you're saying ha instead of hi? He said yes because ha was an abbreviation for hey. Yup, that was the moment. Hey, I can't stop laughing at this. Hey. We were driving down the road, and she looks out the window to see a field full of cows. She then asks, do they call it pasteurized milk because the cows were raised in a pasture? I married her. You mean it isn't because as you are driving they go past your eyes? I dated a really manipulative and horrible person for a bit who would hide behind his weird interpretation of the Bible. I can do anything I want as long as I ask for forgiveness after. I can't go to hell no matter what I do because I'm saved. So one time, we were having a conversation about how he lets his friends bully me so I didn't wanna hang out with them anymore. The kind of healthy talk in relationships where you're just trying to feel understood. I mentioned to him that if I ever saw people mistreating him I would come to his defense because I cared about him. He says, but I'm not you. Just because you pee sitting down doesn't mean I have to pee sitting down. In that moment I realized what I was getting myself into and broke it off immediately. Also, I had seen him pee sitting down. Just wanted to add that. Actually worked with a guy said that if he killed someone all he had to do was to confess his sins and he'd be forgiven and let into heaven. I mentioned that I might be interested in learning to speak Italian. He kind of scoffed and said, why would you need to learn Italian? That's easy. Very confused. I said, what? Why do you think it's so easy? He said, Italian is just American with an accent. Yes, he called it American, not English. Took me a few beats and then I realized he thought an Italian accent was the actual language. Like, he thought I'm gonna eat the spaghetti and meatballs was actual Italian. I could barely get the words out to explain to him how wrong he was because I was literally on the floor helpless, clutching my stomach laughing. I could not stop for at least a full 10 minutes. He was so mad at me for laughing at him, but Jesus Christ, how could I not? Later that day I snuck his phone and changed his ringtone to that Family Guy bit where Peter is talking gibberish. Should have changed the language settings to Italian. Turned down multiple pay rises, promotions because it would put her in the next tax bracket. She, and backed up by to her idiot parents, believed she would be earning a lot less due to the higher tax over the whole amount. I tried to explain but she was very determined to be an idiot forever. Even going as far as saying she wouldn't get any help from welfare if she kept earning. Trash for life. This one got my mom back in the 90s. She was so upset a raise was going to cost her money. That lasted a bit under 2 weeks, until she got her payslip, read it, said ha, and never mentioned it again. Someday a robot will replace you at your job. You need to get a degree and do better. I am an engineer who installs and maintains machines with 2-4 robots in each one. Surprise. We are no longer together. Maybe it's because it's 2 AM but I just disassociated thinking about a dystopia where engineers have been replaced by robots. So robots are building robots that build robots and it goes on forever. Robots all the way down.